Stepovers. Stepovers are one of the most recognizable skills in football. The player swings one foot around the front of the ball without actually touching it, trying to convince the defender that they are about to move in that direction before bursting the other way. They can perform a single stepover, several in a row, or combine them with a sudden change of pace. Cristiano Ronaldo became famous for rapid stepovers during his early years at Manchester United, while Neymar has used them throughout his career. The stepover itself rarely beats the defender. The real damage comes from the change of direction and acceleration immediately afterwards. Body feint. The body feint is one of the simplest skills in football and one of the hardest to defend against. The attacker shifts their shoulders, hips, or body weight towards one direction, making the defender believe they are moving that way before taking the ball in the opposite direction. Lionel Messi is one of the greatest examples. He often appears to do almost nothing more than lean one way before suddenly disappearing past the defender. Defenders naturally react to body movement as much as the ball itself, which is why a convincing feint can create space without requiring any complicated footwork. Nutmeg. A nutmeg is when a player deliberately puts the ball through an opponent's legs and collects it on the other side. It can happen while dribbling, passing, or even shooting. It works because defenders often widen their stance when preparing to tackle or block the ball, creating a small opening between their legs. Timing is everything. Attempt it too early and the defender can simply close the gap. Ronaldinho and Neymar became especially associated with nutmegs because of how often they used them to embarrass opponents. In Britain, you will also often hear people simply shout "megs" when someone gets nutmegged. Fake shot. A fake shot begins exactly like a normal shot or pass. The player draws their leg back, shapes their body as though they are going to strike the ball but stops before making contact and takes it somewhere else instead. The defender often commits themselves because their instinct is to block the expected shot. This makes the move particularly effective inside the penalty area, where even half a second of hesitation can create a clear shooting opportunity. The best fake shots are convincing. The player's body position, standing foot, and kicking motion all need to suggest that the shot is genuinely coming. Ball roll. The ball roll involves placing the sole of the boot on top or slightly to the side of the ball and rolling it across the body. It is not particularly flashy, but it is incredibly useful. A ball roll can move the ball away from a tackle, create a better passing angle, or shift it onto the player's stronger foot before shooting. It works especially well against defenders approaching directly from the front. Instead of knocking the ball straight past them, the attacker slides it sideways and forces the defender to readjust. Sometimes the simplest skills are the hardest to stop. Drag back. A drag back allows a player to suddenly reverse direction. Using the sole of the foot, the player pulls the ball backwards towards themselves before turning or moving into a different area. It is particularly effective when a defender expects the attacker to continue traveling forward. The defender's momentum can carry them past while the attacker changes direction completely. Drag backs are common near the touchline, inside crowded midfield areas, and around the edge of the penalty box. The player's body also helps protect the ball during the movement, making it difficult for the defender to reach around and win possession. Cruyff turn. The Cruyff turn is named after Dutch legend Johan Cruyff, who famously used it at the 1974 World Cup. The player shapes their body as though they are about to pass or cross the ball. Instead, they use the inside of the same foot to drag it behind their standing leg before turning away in the opposite direction. The defender usually moves towards the expected pass while the attacker escapes behind them. What makes the Cruyff turn so effective is the disguise. Without the fake pass beforehand, it is simply a turn. With the disguise, it becomes a way of sending the defender completely the wrong way. Ronaldo chop. The Ronaldo chop became heavily associated with Cristiano Ronaldo, particularly during his Manchester United and Real Madrid years. While running, the player jumps slightly and uses the inside of one foot to knock the ball diagonally behind the other leg. This creates a sharp change of direction without forcing the attacker to stop completely. Ronaldo often used it while running down the wing. A defender would expect him to continue towards the byline before he suddenly chopped the ball inside onto his stronger foot. The move is especially effective at speed because the defender is already moving in the wrong direction. Roulette. The roulette is also known as the Marseille turn or Zidane turn because Zinedine Zidane used it so effectively. The player places one foot on top of the ball and drags it backwards while beginning a full spin. During the rotation, the other foot takes control and pulls the ball away from the defender. The attacker's body effectively becomes becomes a shield between the opponent and the ball. It works particularly well when a defender approaches from the front or side and tries to poke the ball away. The purpose is not simply to spin around. The rotation protects possession while allowing the attacker to escape into another direction. La croqueta. La croqueta became heavily associated with Andres Iniesta. The player quickly pushes the ball from the inside of one foot to the inside of the other, moving it sideways across their body. The first touch takes the ball away from the defender's challenge, while the second pushes it into the open space. Lionel Messi has also used variations of the move throughout his career. It is especially effective in tight spaces because it requires very little room. The two touches happen almost immediately after one another, allowing the attacker to slip past defenders before they have time to adjust. Elastico. The elastico, sometimes called the flip-flap, is one of football's most deceptive skills. Using the same foot, the player first pushes the ball slightly towards the outside before immediately snapping it back towards the inside. Because the two touches happen so quickly, the defender sees the ball traveling one direction before it suddenly disappears the other way. Brazilian players have made the skill particularly famous, with Ronaldinho perhaps the best known modern example. Ronaldo, Nazario, and Neymar have also used it. The first touch needs to be small. Push the ball too far outside and there's no chance of bringing it back quickly enough. Rainbow flick. The rainbow flick is one of football's flashiest tricks. The player traps the ball between or around their feet, rolls it up the back of one leg and flicks it over their own head, and ideally over the defender as well. Neymar has famously attempted rainbow flicks in professional matches, occasionally causing controversy because opponents have viewed the move as showboating or disrespectful. The skill itself is perfectly legal. The problem is that it is difficult to execute in a match because the player needs enough space to perform it and then still has to control the ball once it comes back down. Heel to heel flick. The heel to heel flick is designed to create sudden acceleration. The player touches the ball forward with one foot before immediately knocking it further ahead using the heel or back of the other foot. Done quickly, the ball appears to shoot forward between the attacker's legs. Cristiano Ronaldo has regularly used variations of it, particularly when facing a defender one-on-one. Unlike many dribbling skills, this move is usually performed while already running. It is most effective when there is open space behind the defender, allowing the attacker to knock the ball forward and accelerate after it. Sombrero flick. A sombrero flick is when an attacker lifts the ball over an opponent's head before moving around them and controlling it on the other side. The name comes from the ball traveling over the defender like the curved shape of a sombrero. There are several ways to perform it. A player can scoop the ball from the ground, flick it up while receiving a pass, or use their first touch to lift it over an approaching defender. The difficult part is not simply getting the ball over the opponent. The player also needs to judge where it is going to land and reach it before another defender does. Berbatov spin. The Berbatov spin became famous after Dimitar Berbatov produced an incredible version for Manchester United against West Ham in 2008. While running towards the touchline, the player puts the sole of their foot on the ball and drags it backwards while spinning their body around. The defender expects the ball to continue forwards and can easily overrun the situation. The attacker completes the turn and emerges facing back towards the pitch while keeping possession. It is particularly useful near the sideline because the defender often believes they have trapped the attacker with nowhere left to go. McGeady spin. The McGeady spin is named after Irish winger Aidan McGeady. The player begins by touching the ball behind themselves using the inside of one foot while turning their body. They then use the outside of the other foot to push the ball away in the new direction. It can look similar to a roulette, but the ball is normally moved using two sharper touches rather than being dragged through the whole rotation. The move is useful for escaping a defender approaching from the side or behind because the player's first turn shields the ball before the second touch creates separation. Hocus pocus. The hocus pocus is one of the most complicated tricks in football. The player moves one leg behind their standing leg and uses the inside of the foot to push the ball one way before immediately wrapping the same foot around and knocking it back in the opposite direction with the outside. The movement happens while the player's legs are crossed, which makes the sudden change of direction extremely difficult to read. Ronaldinho and Neymar have both shown variations of the trick. It is much more commonly associated with street football and showboating than regular match play, but when it works, it looks ridiculous. Rabona happens when a player crosses one leg behind the other to strike the ball. For example, instead of using their left foot to hit a ball positioned on their left side, a right-footed player might wrap their right leg behind their standing leg and kick it that way. Rabonas can be used for passes, crosses, and shots. Angel Di Maria, Eric Lamela, and Ricardo Quaresma are among the players most associated with the technique. Sometimes it is purely for style, but it can also be practical when a player strongly prefers one foot and does not want to use their weaker side. Trivela. The trivela is a pass, cross, or shot struck using the outside of the foot. Instead of curling the ball inwards using the inside of the boot, the player strikes it with the outer part of the foot and creates spin in the opposite direction. Ricardo Quaresma became famous for using the trivela almost like a normal passing technique, while Luka Modric has regularly used outside of the foot passes to open up difficult angles. It can be especially useful when a player wants to move the ball in a direction that would normally require their weaker foot. Backheel. A backheel involves making contact with the ball using the heel of the boot, usually while facing away from the direction the ball's going. It can be used for a simple pass, a clever flick, or even a shot. The main advantage is surprise. Defenders usually expect players to send the ball in the direction they are facing, so a backheel can suddenly open a passing lane that looked impossible. Ronaldinho, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and Roberto Firmino have all produced memorable examples. It is a risky skill when used unnecessarily, but in the right situation, it can completely remove a defender from the play. Panenka. The Panenka is a penalty technique named after Antonín Panenka, who famously used it in the deciding penalty of the 1976 European Championship final. Instead of driving the ball towards either corner, the player gently chips it down the middle. The idea is psychological. The goalkeeper expects a normal penalty and commits to diving left or right, leaving the center of the goal empty. Andrea Pirlo, Zinedine Zidane, and Lionel Messi have all successfully used it. The risk is obvious. If the goalkeeper stays central, the ball can float almost directly into their hands, making a failed Panenka look particularly painful. Knuckleball. A knuckleball is a shooting technique where the player attempts to strike the ball with very little spin. Without normal rotation stabilizing its flight, the ball can move unpredictably through the air, suddenly dipping or swerving as it approaches the goalkeeper. Cristiano Ronaldo became famous for knuckleball free kicks, while Juninho Pernambucano was another master of unusual free kick movement. The technique normally involves striking around the center of the ball with a firm ankle and a relatively straight contact. Even when executed properly, the exact movement of the ball can be difficult to predict, which is part of what makes it so dangerous. Bicycle kick. The bicycle kick, also known as an overhead kick, is one of football's most spectacular finishing techniques. The player jumps backwards, throws their body into the air, and strikes the ball above their own head while almost horizontal to the ground. The kicking motion resembles pedaling a bicycle, which is where the name comes from. Cristiano Ronaldo's goal against Juventus, Wayne Rooney's Manchester Derby winner, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic's incredible strike against England are famous examples. The technique is difficult enough on its own, but players also have to be aware of nearby opponents because a high boot can be penalized as dangerous play. Scorpion kick. The scorpion kick might be the strangest skill on this list. The player dives or leans forward and throws both legs backwards above their body before striking the ball with their heels. The position resembles a scorpion raising its tail, which gives the technique its name. Colombian goalkeeper René Higuita made it famous with his scorpion clearance against England at Wembley in 1995. Attackers have since scored using variations of it, including Olivier Giroud. Unlike most football skills, it is rarely something a player can properly plan. It usually happens because the ball arrives at an unusual height and the player improvises. If you want to learn more about football, check out the video on screen right now.